name's Craig Thomas. I'm from the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance at the University of Washington. And before I introduce the panelists, I just want to say this panel has been organized by what we call the Consortium on Collaborative Governance, CCG. 5 schools and several are represented here. UC Denver School is not represented here today. So it's USC School of Public Policy, School of Government and Public Policy, Kirk Emerson at Arizona, and Julia Carboni at Syracuse, and Tina Nabachi's in the program, but she's graciously sitting in the audience and will ask questions because the table is more crowded. And then Professor Nemec from Slovakia is not able to be here. He's on the program. And so the CCG, the Consortium on Collaborative Governance, it's not a club. We just see ourselves, we're schools that have a lot of people who do collaborative governance, and so we try to organize panels. So at the last Public Management Research Association conference in North Carolina, we had a workshop, half-a-day workshop, thinking about challenges for doing research in collaborative governance. So for this conference, because it's NASPAA, challenges of teaching collaborative governance in programs, and we're only going to talk for half the time because we want to hear from all of you. At ASPA, we're planning a panel, hopefully will be accepted, on challenges of training people through our schools to place them in the jobs we care about at ASPA. And then at PMRA in Hawaii, we're hoping a panel will be accepted to revisit grand challenges in research, but different types of challenges. So our idea is all these conferences, we're going to try to hold panels and invite people who are interested in the topic to come and talk about these things. We try to organize other events too for doctoral training, et cetera. But again, it's not a club. We're just organizers, and we're trying to get a bunch of people involved in our various events. So Kirk is going to give us a fairly broad view first about 3 types of challenges in teaching collaborative governance in our programs. And then Jan will address one of the challenges. I'll pick up after that, and Julia at the end.
Good morning, welcome. Delighted to see everybody here. So about 8 years ago at the University of Arizona, the School of Government and Public Policy made a pioneering decision to invest in creating an online program for collaborative governance. At that time, we had a fledgling university-based online program, and they invested in us to create this curriculum. And I was rather new to the program. I was encouraged to take up that challenge, though I questioned whether we could actually teach collaborative governance online, and resisted at least to insist that we have a skills-based person-to-person course. So we developed a graduate certificate in collaborative governance with 4 courses, 3 of which are online, 1 theory, research, and practice overview, another about institutional design and collaborative learning, and a third about collaborative tools and techniques, particularly online techniques. And then the 4th, a skill building face-to-face course dealing with negotiation, conflict management, collaborative governance, engaging multiple parties in stakeholder processes. And that certificate has continued up until I think last year we decided to suspend and reassess. The program was based on the pedagogy that I developed with Steve Smutko and the University Network for Collaborative Governance on developing collaborative competencies, and be welcome to give you that as a reference. And in addition, Andrea Gerlach, one of my partners, and I wrote a piece in JPAE on how to teach collaborative governance online. But this is not a panel about how to do it. It's what the barriers are to developing these kinds of programs. And the intention of our program was to not only market this to MPA students, but to more broadly across campus different programs, whether it's law or planning, environmental sciences, public health, a variety of disciplines, anthropology, geography, and we also wanted to market it, well, I did, nationally, because there hadn't been an online program. Now there are a few more, Portland State being one of them. There were some changes, and I'll talk about them later, in the university-based online program that became problematic, and eventually our MPA program chose to make collaborative governance a formal track So you could take a track in environmental management or one in human resources, and there was actually a formal track in collaborative governance, which benefited our program enormously. The track, you could take 3 courses. If you wanted to go on and take an extra class, then you would have a certificate as well. But long story short, we abandoned the track system in our MPA program, and our enrollment began to decline. We still now continue to teach 3 of the courses, and they're pretty well enrolled. So I want to review just a few challenges, programmatic challenges, institutional challenges, and what I'll refer to as marketing challenges in developing a program such as this or something less ambitious. We're competing with a very full plate of MPA courses, as you all know. So how do you inject yet another requirement into that course load? And I'm sure all my colleagues here will talk about that. It's a real challenge. And I'm actually a proponent of integrating this topic into the course framework and integrating collaborative governance, cross-boundary governance into the NASPAA-approved mission statements of your school, which allows you then to set up some curriculum, goals and objectives and note performance, and then perhaps have some kind of Uber course or a 2-credit course that would integrate or introduce these themes that you would see popping up in org theory, in network analysis, in human resource, and so forth. So that is one model that I'm actually leaning towards. But there are also definitional tensions under this category of programmatic challenges. And some of us in academia are still pushing for collaborative governance to be an overarching umbrella term, perhaps competing itself with this notion of a new governance management movement, right? While others, like my colleague Tina Navachi and myself, would like to be more specific in the design and management parameters for collaborative governance. So it still needs to be figured out exactly what we're talking about. Then finally, I'll add on the programmatic side that there is a general bias, I think, against, or at least there's junior status given to skill building classes in MPA programs. Generally, we're not teaching management skills to the extent that I, as a academic, think we should be. And as a consequence then, classes on negotiation, conflict management, multi-party stakeholder engagement processes are given second class and not seen as imperative in our curriculum. And I think that needs to change quite seriously. On the institutional challenges side, collaborative governance is interdisciplinary. It is a cross-boundary practice. And as many of you know, it is very hard to stand up an interdisciplinary course and get other programs and departments on campus to buy in. You've got to go through cross-listing, you've got to get champions in other schools. I actually got set up with courtesy appointments in public health and in planning in order to enlist some of our courses to be accepted as required curriculum in other master's programs. So it is one way to generate more engagement in the program, and I think it's vital, but it takes a lot of front-end investment and nurturing. Just 2 online challenges I mentioned. We created a hybrid program, so 3 online courses, several electives, but also a required face-to-face skill-based program. And our new online university-based program will not market us, will not include us in their listings because we are not purely online. That has been a big disadvantage to us. The other thing I will say is that when I had hoped to market nationally, we had an initial arrangement to waive the out-of-state tuition fees. We're a state school. That has changed, so we have to essentially put on top of our own school fees an out-of-state tuition fee, which really makes this unaffordable. So I think we need these kinds of larger nationally based programs, even internationally based online programs, but if you're hybrid, that's hard to do, and if you've got fee issues, that's going to be problematic. Okay, very quickly, 3 marketing challenges. Broadly, there's a decline in graduate certificates across all professional schools, to contend with. I'm not sure where we are this year, but in the last few years we've had a decline in MPA enrollment generally. That has affected the demand for collaborative governance courses. And then I would say our terminology, not that I want to change it, but we have our own marketing to do around collaborative governance, not just to sell students who will then enroll, but to explain to their prospective employers that collaborative governance and all of the skills and theories and practices and approaches are important to the work they're doing. I do think employers understand the importance of integration and conflict management and what is disparagingly referred to as soft skills, but they don't understand the term collaborative governance. So with that, I'll just say, I'll wrap it up with things are actually looking up. Here at our school for our certificate program, our law college is now interested in launching some kind of participatory democracy initiative, and we may combine and extend our program to include collaborative governance and participatory democracy. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. Jan?
Okay, yeah, to follow on what Kurt has said, what I want to do is to talk a little bit about the history of the Pride School offering collaborative governance as one of the core classes for our master's degree program. And actually, I believe our school is one of the first major school of public affairs that actually required collaborative governance as a core required courses for a core degree program. So the history was something like that. So it was almost exactly 20 years ago. The current version of the Pride School was formed during that time by combining the old school of public administration and the old school of urban planning and development. So we became a pretty big school, and then we actually have many master's degree programs. The MPA, of course, is one of the oldest. Then we have urban planning, health administration, also master of real estate development. So at that time, when we formed the new school, there was kind of a long discussion among the faculty as what gels us together. And actually at the moment, one of the consensus opinions was that actually what gels us together is we all do what we call cross-sectoral governance issues. Because you think about real estate, even though a lot of them would work for private developers, but private developers have to work with government to get projects initiated and approved, working together in terms of urban development, healthcare administration, the same, public policy, of course, and MPA, of course, so forth. So we were thinking of having one course that would be the one single required course for all these different degree programs. So that's the background for why about 20 years ago we introduced this course. We didn't call it collaborative governance. We call it intersectoral governance. So we emphasize collaboration, but the emphasis also with the idea of intersectoral, meaning that we specifically want to train our students to be able to work across sectors. So we did that for a number of years, and during those years, we did face a lot of challenges. So for MPAs, for MPPs, they have no issue about understanding the need for taking this particular class, because PA people, policy people, they generally recognize the importance of cross-sectoral collaboration. But we did face a lot of pushback from other degree programs, especially from the real estate students, also to some extent from the urban planning students. So a lot of pushback, and then we move on until we did it for 10 years, then we have a couple of programs who decided to withdraw from requiring that particular class. And subsequently, we reconfigured the class. The old class was 4 units, then we turned it into a 2-unit class, and we call it intersectoral leadership instead of governance. So to sort of signify we are teaching you more like the management leadership skills to be able to work across sectors. And then we had it for about 7-8 years. And subsequently, there was still pushback from some of the programs. So now the latest iteration is we turned it, actually now calling it collaborative governance, turning it into a 4-unit class, and now I think is the requirement only for our MPA program as one of the core management competencies they can select from. So I think we also face similar issues as Kurt earlier mentioned, that even for the core MPA students, some of them might still raise the question of, it's a specialized class, but some of the topics like networking, like about negotiation, some of those core issues in collaborative governance could have also been covered in other classes, organizational behavior, other general introduction to public administration. But I think within at least the MPA program, I think is still a shared consensus. I think students are receptive to the idea, understanding that collaborative governance is indeed a core set of issues all PA students should know, and then the kind of skills in negotiation, contract management, stakeholder analysis, those are still core competencies, I think, that fit in with the major mission of our MPA program. So that's kind of the history of our experience of teaching collaborative governance at the Price School.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up on some of the points Kirk and Jan made, and then we'll get to Julia last, because she's going to focus more on teaching to practice. The Evans School of Public Policy and Governance, now named, was 5 to 7 years ago, I can't remember when, called the Evans School of Public Affairs. Nobody really liked that term or knew what it meant. And we went through a careful thinking about how we changed the name. So clearly we have public policy and we have management, but we purposely chose governance because it's multi-sectoral. And we have a lot of people who do it. We, as researchers and teachers, and we consciously wanted to sell it that way, both to our stakeholders as well, and they bought into it in Seattle. Interestingly, it never got into our core. And so we're in the quarter system, 3 quarters, several courses a year. Our first year is all core. We have more room to put it in the core than a semester system because we have more courses, 10 weeks courses. We still don't have a core course. And not only that, I teach a course called Managing Politics and the Policy Process. That course has 1 week of collaborative governance. And actually, it's not collaborative governance, it's intersectoral. In that 1 week, we compare collaborative governance to contracting, to networking. And in networking, we have to divide it up into various topics as well. In 1 week, 1 3-hour class. I teach that course, and so do 3 others. So even though we've branded ourselves as intersectoral, it's not in our core except for 1 week, 1 course on a quarter system. Why? Because we got to teach a suite of public policy and management courses, policy analysis, program evaluation, stats, econ. Everybody, all these things are important. So even though we've branded ourselves that way, it's almost out of the core. But we have a lot of people who do collaborative governance in various ways, and we bring in practitioners to teach some. We have a practitioner who comes in and teaches negotiation. It gets about 40 people when it's taught. We have a practitioner come in from the Ruckelshaus Center, which is based in Washington. The director of it teaches a collaborative practice course. David Suarez teaches cross-sectoral, using that language, collaboration from a nonprofit perspective. We have a public-private partnerships course taught from the contracting perspective, and there's more. So we have a suite of second-year courses. For those students who want to take those courses, we bring in about 170 students a year, and a decent number want to take those courses. And so it's interesting that even though we intentionally brand ourselves that way and have the ability to offer, it's not in our core. And I don't know that we're going to get it in the core, no matter how much I talk about it. And I've spent my whole career studying collaborative governance. I've never taught a course in it even, because I don't have to teach other stuff in the second year electives and in the core. So we're in the opposite situation of Jan, in that we have never even tried to put it in the core, and can only squeeze it in for 1 week in a larger course on policy making processes, and yet we signal repeatedly. When the dean, Sandy Archibald, just retired, she would always talk about it this way. Economist, but she totally bought into the cross-sectoral collaborative governance, and we all know it's important, except perhaps economists. They don't. I think they would acknowledge, yes, it's important, but I don't understand it. Let's run some data. They're my friends. I can talk. If they were in the room, they'd say, "Yeah, Craig, you're probably right." But we all know that, and yet we're stuck on this trajectory over time of having done the same thing in a very packed core. And the Evans School of Public Policy and Governance wants to be, and we are, public policy and management. And so when you want to put a lot of stuff into the core, you're squeezing out stuff that, even though we know in the trajectory of practice, we're in a cross-sectoral society now. And yet it's hard. This is an institutional barrier, a programmatic barrier. The institution can totally buy into it and sell itself this way, but from a programmatic level, we have packed our core so far, and there's other people arguing for more core, and we stuff it all in the first year. It's not in the second, except for the capstone project, and so we're in this interesting situation, and yet we're loaded with people who study collaborative governance in a wide variety of ways. Joaquin Herantz is a network scholar. I don't think he's ever taught a course on networks. We have this great capacity, but it's all in the second year for those who opt in, and unfortunately, other than the broad framing, it's not in this core of skills that we're building over time, unfortunately. And I don't know how we could make the argument to get it in, given we all want this huge, whopping big core. And I just note, too, that unlike the Price School, we are a school without departments. So we don't have a variety of programs in which we could track people into different programs. We're a non-departmentalized school with one MPA degree and then other degrees like EMPA, where there actually is a course in the EMPA, fortunately. So I'll just leave you with that to tell our story. And I don't want to make the Evans School sound bad. It's awesome. This is a story about, just about what we do with our core and how we want and believe students should know a lot. And there's just not much room to bring it in. Like now we want data sciences in with the stats. Where does that fit? It's just a packed core.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying at Maxwell, we don't have collaborative governance in our core. A collaborative governance course is offered as an elective for our MPA students, and we have pretty good enrollment. So I teach that course right now, and every year I have close to 30 people enrolled in the course. So there's demand for it. In our eMPA, so our online MPA that we deliver through 2U, it is a required course just by default because our eMPAs have to take 10 courses, and this is one of the 10 courses we have prepped. So we've been rolling that program out slowly. And so all of our eMPAs who are taking our courses online actually have to take the collaborative governance class. So we've sort of slid it in there. And so we hope to maintain that. Though it's not in our MPA core, I think the unique structure and nature of Maxwell allows us to do some really creative and innovative things that get these skills to our students. So for those of you who don't know, Maxwell is more than just public affairs or public administration. We have all of the social sciences in our school. So we're thinking about sociology, political science, geography, economics even. And so we have all of these disciplines in our house, which makes it great for collaborative governance because, as we know, collaborative governance is not just a public administration thing. It goes well beyond public affairs, and so we need to incorporate other types of skills building activities in order to prepare our students to go into the workforce and to be able to lead across organizations and in these collaborative governance arrangements. The other thing that's really interesting about Maxwell is that faculty don't sit in departments, so we sit in research centers. So right now, even though my tenure is in public administration and international affairs, I actually sit in the Program for Advancement on Research on Conflict and Collaboration, which is way too long, so we just call it PARC. And so PARC is a research institute that draws faculty from across the Maxwell School. So we have sociologists, political scientists, geographers, PA people associated with our research institute. And through this institutional arrangement, we're able to offer programming related to collaborative governance. So I want to talk about a couple of really innovative things that we've been able to do. Even though this isn't in our core management curriculum, we've been able to provide training and skills for students. And I should also say, in our core management courses, which we're revising right now, we do talk about collaboration. Each one of our core management classes does for at least a week. And so we've committed to that as the management faculty. But going back to PARC, so PARC is a research center, but it also provides education, training, and consulting with a number of outside agencies. And so it's sort of more than research. We do a little bit of everything, and teaching is a core part of our mission. So we support a Certificate of Advanced Study in Conflict and Collaboration. This is a certificate that requires 12 units of coursework, and you can focus on collaborative governance as your track. This is something that MPA students take to complement their MPA. Some of the courses also count for their MPA degree, so there's not too much overlap. And so this certificate is really focused on collaborative governance skills, and we actually have a number of courses in the Maxwell School that will count toward the certificate, and in particular to the collaborative governance track. Skills like, we teach skills like negotiation, conflict resolution. We focus a lot on interest-based problem solving. And these are 3-unit courses that students get to take. And we also, in addition to providing these courses during the regular academic year, I should also back up and note that our MPA program is 1 year. So we bring them in July 1 and we kick them out June 30th and bring in the next class, right? So they have lots to do in that year. And so it's hard to add to our MPA core as well because we just have time constraints and other courses that need to be taken. In any case, we offer these collaborative governance-oriented courses throughout the year. We also have a Summer Institute, which is a 3-week set of courses. So it's typically the collaborative governance course, so sort of an overview of collaborative governance. What is it? What's the theory behind it? What are skills that are important for it? And then we also offer a conflict resolution class and a negotiation class. And these things happen 3 weeks right together. We typically draw executive MPA students. We also draw from other sort of departments and programs in Maxwell and across the university. These courses allow us to teach these skills in a way that people can take the courses and learn these skills. Even though it's not in our MPA program, we think it's important that people develop these skills, and we want to provide opportunities for them to do that. So we offer these courses. We also offer additional workshops regularly throughout the year. So these workshops don't count for credit, but they allow students to start building skills associated with collaborative governance. And we build these as skills courses. Come in and learn about conflict resolution. Come in and learn the interest-based problem-solving method to get groups to consensus. And so rather than focusing on marketing it as, hey, come learn collaborative governance, we're saying, hey, come learn these management skills that will help you in your career. It will help them in collaborative governance, and we connect it to that, but we also connect it to sort of the wider world of practice and saying, you know, conflict resolution skills are going to be useful anywhere, right? This interest-based problem-solving model is going to be useful. Negotiation is going to be useful. And by the way, look at how it connects to collaborative governance. This is the type of work you will be doing as you're leading and managing organizations. And so even though it's not credit, it's been for credit, it's been a really creative and innovative way to get this content to students and skills to students. And so as you're thinking about maybe revising your curriculum, we all face this issue of a really packed MPA core, but are there other ways that we can get these skills to students that make sense and can do it on sort of their schedule without or overburdening them? So that's what we've been really engaged in PARC. Our dean has been really supportive of this, and the chancellor of Syracuse University, who has specialization in negotiation, has also been really supportive of PARC and the programming that we offer. So that's sort of what I would say about what we're doing. One of the things that PARC has done is started this EIP Arc, and this goes back to your point about incorporating this into the existing curriculum. And so we run a simulation contest and a case contest every year. I would encourage you guys to apply for it. I think the deadline is in March. But we have an online repository of cases and simulations that are related to collaborative governance. And so it can be hard to feel like you're recreating the wheel and you've got to do all of these things. And so I want to put that out there as a resource to all of you. It's free and open access. And again, the competition is coming up. There's a cash prize that's associated with it. But it's another way to work collaborative governance into existing management courses and to not have to recreate resources. There's a number of really great cases and simulations, and I use those regularly in my classes.
So I just want to say, I think it is very hard to teach collaborative governance to students who've had no practical experience. I mean, they don't get it. It's too conceptual. However, you can use these simulations or case studies to understand the complex cross-boundary world they're going to be managing in and introduce them to this new context that our curriculum hasn't quite caught up with, right? And then eventually they will learn, maybe in their second year, if they can take a required course or skill building workshops, how to begin to manage in that complex world. But we're all the victim of path dependence here. And in 30 years, the world has changed considerably. And I think, well, maybe NASPAA accreditation and the continually, the self-study process will get faculty thinking about how they have to reconceive their core.
So one of the things that I do in my collaborative governance class, we use the Emerson and Nabachi book on collaborative governance regimes, and I walk them through the process of, problem definition, and then how do you start to put together a collaborative governance regime. We talk a lot about stakeholder identification and engagement. We talk about setting up meetings, process. And so one of the projects that they do is to pick a problem, sort of explain why it's a problem, go through sort of the framework, and then provide a plan that's up to sort of identifying stakeholders and thinking about how you might engage them. They typically pick real-world problems to do this, and so some of the students keep it where it's just their project in class, and others have actually gone out and developed projects with the community. So right now in Syracuse City Schools, there's a real problem with lack of aftercare activities for kids. And so one of my groups approached our state senator and developed sort of this collaborative governance regime around how do we get more after-school care in the schools. And so Rachel May, who's the rep, or I guess she's the rep, has taken that and is now sort of using that as a template to put together things around after-school care. We've also seen projects in India, so we get a lot of Indian civil servants who come in, so waste collection in Kerala. There's been things around pollution in Delhi, and so they take these projects and then hand them off or interact with real problems. And so in that way, it's not quite service learning, but they're making a real impact, and they're able to take these plans and actually do something with them.
Yeah, the kind of problem we face is since for our core class, we involve both our regular faculty and sometimes we are practitioners teaching it. I think one continuing tension is for academics teaching the class, we all focus on the governance part, more the theory. But if you have a practitioner teaching it, they tend to do the leadership, the outreach, the management part. So there's also a tension about it. So one experience we have actually was, as you remember, I talked about the history. Initially, we involved other degree programs like urban planning, real estate development, health administration as requiring the same class. I think the pushback was mainly with the governance aspect. They actually, in PA, people usually have no problem understand what governance means. But for people in, health administration or urban planning, and many of them, especially the students, are still not used to thinking about in terms of governance. For them, governance is about government. And then they have resistance. Why do we have to learn so much about government? So that was the major, one of the reasons for the pushback from the students.
So I just want to respond to that. I think there's also interscale issues, whether it is intergovernmental or not, and having worked both at the local government and in federal government, There's a lot of activity at federal, state, certainly in environmental and natural resources, but also in social services provision, where you need these kinds of both process skills and management skills, as well as design skills for ongoing, collaborative governance regimes or systems, if you will. And so I would, it's clearly how you do business at the local level, but I would hope that people would see the broader value of collaborative governance across all the different levels.
Well, my Managing Politics and the Policy Process course I teach with 3 others, that's the incoming management course for them, is all about government and stakeholder mapping. It's all government-centric looking out. So they are getting it from that course from the get-go. And then we have the second management course is Managing Organizational Performance. It's all about, you're an agency official, how do you manage staff, processes, performance management. So it's still solidly in our core.
I'll just say I've been thinking a lot about this because I've just been teaching collaborative governance in China for 5 weeks. So the role of government is really important. and then coming back here and realizing that as we create these fuzzy boundaries, and in the political era that we're in right now, we cannot forget to build an understanding and appreciation and articulation of the role of the state. And there are those who think collaborative governance is simply lateral engagement. And I don't think you can have an effective collaborative governance regime without engaging with the hierarchy and with public decision makers, formal authorities. So I think we have misconceptualized for some time that these are fully distinct ways of governing, and that we're really talking about integrating different forms of authority. And that requires a lot of education about the role of the state and the law and regulation and so forth.
So actually I agree with Charlie that actually I think it's also partly the problem even with the mainstream academic PA literature, that we kind of, in many cases, especially with behavioral PA becoming more dominant, that we kind of lose track of the idea of understanding political institutions as the foundation for understanding public administration. So in our courses, we do that in the fundamentals of PA, introducing. Actually, I spent 2 or 3 weeks talking about the constitutional foundations of PA in the US as a start. And yet we actually face additional challenges because we do have a lot of students from China. They're coming in, no idea whatsoever about how the system works. So at least you need a few weeks to introduce them to the even very, very basics.
And at Maxwell, our students come in and take a course on public administration and democracy that focuses a lot on government. And in the collaborative governance course in particular, I take an approach similar to Kirk in that, government provides authority. It's a decision maker, and it's one that you need on board if you're going to solve public problems, right? So thinking about the special role of government and their ability to make these decisions, to send resources, but also as a convener, right? So Ansel and Gash from 2007 really said that collaborative governance has to be publicly initiated, and I don't agree with that. I think it can be initiated by non-governmental organizations, but you can't have collaborative governance without a government actor, right? And so we focus a lot on the special role of government and sort of the role that they play in collaborative governance. One of the things I think we need to be careful about, and we've discussed this in the CCG, is collaboration is not necessarily collaborative governance. There are definitely overlaps. We could think of it as a Venn diagram. But when we're thinking about collaborative governance, really bringing in that governance part of it, and then the government, right? So this isn't just collaboration across, a bunch of organizations or within organizations, but there's a governance element to this, and it deals with these public problems. And so I think PA schools have a really unique advantage in thinking about that governance piece. And when we're thinking about the skills we need to build in order to engage in collaborative governance, we can reach outside of our PA field into the disciplines to learn things like conflict resolution and negotiation, and that those skills complement our ability to engage in collaborative governance. But I don't want to lose this idea of collaborative governance or for it to be sort of subsumed by collaboration, right? Because I think that there's something unique there.
All right, let's thank the panel.
Thank you.